Hi, and welcome. This is Marjorie Saulson of VibrantVocalPower.com, and this is the latest edition of our Speaking Tips and Tricks broadcasts. And today we are talking about a rather difficult subject, and that's tips for handling an angry person. Now, this is not a comfortable situation. There you are, sitting someplace, standing, whatever, minding your own business, and somebody rushes up to you and starts complaining and a rage about something, angry about something, either with you or with somebody else, and they start perhaps even yelling at you. Ooh, and it's such a very uncomfortable situation. And whether you're watching this live or on the replay, please write yes if this has ever happened to you, because I think it's an experience that does happen periodically in our lives, and it's something that really takes some skill in dealing with. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some tips about how you actually handle this. And I wrote out a whole bunch of notes here to make sure that I include all of this information. I don't want to just do it off the cuff. So the question is, how do you respond in a way that first does not escalate the situation and make it even worse? Secondly, ideally helps the person to calm down. And third, if that doesn't work, just kind of get this person out of your space. Now, there are a couple crucial things to remember when you're dealing with somebody who's angry or in any situation. The number one is a motto that actually was posted on my website not long ago, and that is never allow anyone to stampede you into a speedy response. In other words, don't let people put you on the spot, ask you for an immediate response, answer the question, tell me what to do, da 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 da, or you're at fault and what are you going to do about it, da 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 da. Never allow anybody to stampede you into a speedy response. Give yourself some time to think. It helps, especially if you start feeling yourself getting upset. It's the same thing you do if you're nervous before speaking. You focus in on your breath. Do some deep breathing. The minute we start feeling nervous and upset, we go to shallow breathing. So do some deep breathing and listen carefully. If this person needs to talk, sometimes just listening is a gift that you can give to somebody that's upset. And especially if you can say, well, you know, I can see you're really upset about this. And that helps get the person to understand that you're willing to listen to them. And so if they ask you, you know, for an immediate response and they want you to tell them something, it does help to ask them to explain a little further. If they're complaining about a certain situation, you can say, well, I can see you're very upset about this, but could you explain to me exactly what happened or what the sequence of events were or why this is such an issue? And just say you need more information if they want you to do something about it. Don't get stampeded into committing to doing something that you're going to later regret. And the other thing, and this is kind of hard for us to get, especially when somebody's pointing the finger at us, that other people's anger, even when they're angry at us, has nothing to do with us. And I know that sounds really strange, but a lot of really wonderful people who know a great deal about this, certainly more than I do, have written about the fact that when we are upset and angry about something, those things, whatever's happening in the present, is triggering an old wound that happened sometime in the first 7 years of our lives. There's a book by Hugh Missildine. I love the title of this book. He talks about your inner child of the past. We all have an inner child of the past where things happened that wounded us and we didn't have the capacity to heal ourselves of those wounds. And so whenever something upsets us, that's a signal that some old unhealed wound is getting triggered. And so if somebody else is in a state of upset and rage, anger, that's a wound from their inner child. And even if they blame you, maybe it was something you said or did, it triggered their old wound. It's not the initial cause. And one of the examples of this that I think is absolutely wonderful is Louise Hay, who's probably one of the great self-help gurus of our age. And I somehow misplaced a copy of her book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I decided a number of years ago that I wanted to have it in my reference library. So I bought another copy. And it just so happened it was a reissue, and she'd written a new preface. And I think you'll find this as enlightening and as amusing as I did. She said she really felt that she had dealt with all the stuff in her life. But then her mother got to a point where she could no longer take care of herself, and she moved in with her. And Louise said all of a sudden she discovered all kinds of stuff dealing with her mother that she hadn't dealt with. And I thought, if Louise Hay has stuff that she hasn't dealt with, I'm sure the rest of us do too. And then there's something else my very wise sister, Marcia, has told me on more than one occasion. When somebody points a finger at you, just remember there are 3 more fingers pointing right back at them. And so if you point a finger at somebody else, those 3 fingers are pointing back at you. Blaming other people is a loser's game. It's never the other person in the sense of what upsets you. It's always some old wound being triggered. Now, it's true, people do stuff that needs to be dealt with. But it's helpful to know that stuff that upsets you in the present has its genesis in the wounds of the past. And the more we can heal our own inner wounds, the less things there will be that will upset us in the present. So in the meanwhile, what about some strategies that you can use? When somebody comes up and they're obviously upset about something, and you can start with some type of caring sentence like, I'm really sorry that you're so upset about this. I can tell that this situation is really bothering you. Now, this does not mean in any way that you agree with whatever the person is complaining about. You're just acknowledging and saying you're sorry that they're so upset. The second thing is to recognize that this person is really unhappy. That some old wound of theirs has been triggered, and it helps to be a compassionate listener. Sometimes all people want is somebody to really listen in a caring way. They don't want you to solve the problem for them. They just want somebody to be empathetic. And you can do that if it's appropriate, by asking, to elucidate give you more information about something that they're talking about that isn't quite clear. And that helps them clarify their own thinking. If you say, well, you said this and then you said that, and those 2 things don't seem to jive, explain this to me. But what actually is going on? Now, if the person is complaining about something that you did, and you did do it, and you were in the wrong, the very fastest, but sometimes most difficult, way to totally diffuse the situation is simply to apologize. They say that the 4 hardest words to say in the English language are, I made a mistake. There is something in our ego state sometimes that we just don't want to admit that we're wrong. And so we start justifying ourselves and defending ourselves, and we just make the situation worse. Because on some level, we know we were out of line, or maybe partially out of line. And if you don't want to admit a whole truth, because maybe a whole fault, because maybe it isn't totally your fault, you can say, I think this is partly my fault. And I'll tell you, I did this once. I was at a meeting. I was chairing a meeting for an event, and there was a big issue that came up, and there was one member of the committee who was always hot under the collar about something. And she got really upset about something, and she was going on and on and on. And I said, you know, this is really partially my fault. I'm the chair of this event, and I should have been on this, and I missed it. And the funniest thing is it was like her anger was this huge hot air balloon that went just totally diffused the situation. And I thought, you know, just saying that maybe it's partly my fault does that. What a powerful strategy to acknowledge that maybe I misunderstood you, and or maybe I got carried away and did something out of line, and I'm really sorry that you're so upset about it. And that's, you know, that's one thing. Then the other thing is that people very often, if they're angry at somebody else, they'll complain to you, and they'll know you want you to go settle and tell the other person. It's called triangulation, and it is totally something to avoid. There's an old English saying, don't pull someone else's chestnuts out of the fire. Now, a roasting chestnut is very hot. And so if you pull the chestnuts out of the fire, you're the one whose fingers get burned, and the other person gets the chestnut. That's not helpful. And so if somebody says that they want you to talk to somebody, you said, you know, I make it a policy never, ever to get involved in other people's issues. I think it's really important for you to clarify what it is you're upset about and speak to this person directly. The minute I get in the middle, I'm going to muck it up. I'm going to make both of you angry at me. And frankly, that's not something I want to happen. So never, ever let somebody else drag you in as a third person to an argument. It's a boundary issue. Set the boundary around what you are willing and not willing to do. So that's really important. So here's some final thoughts about how to live your life without you getting angry, and how to prevent your own anger and upset. And one of the things is to start your day with as positive a frame of mind as possible. Do something that will really make your day start off well. I made a suggestion to a colleague of mine who was complaining bitterly about something, you know, his life just wasn't going the way he wanted. And I suggested that every day he get up in the morning and write one thing, just one thing, that he was grateful for. It's a gratitude journal. And I said it's really important to cultivate what I call an attitude of gratitude. And as you're going through the day, focus on things that make you happy, that bring you joy. My husband said it's a crime not to go outside on a beautiful day and enjoy the beauty of the day. And most days you can find some beauty in. And that's an important thing to do. And I'd like to use my husband Saul as somebody who just lives a wonderful way of living. He used to play tennis 3 mornings a week before his knees went. And he said something interesting. He said when he started a day with a game, playing tennis, it didn't matter what happened during the day. Nothing bothered him. It was the most irritating things that could happen. He just sailed right over his head because he was in such a good frame of mind from having exercised in the morning. And the other thing is that this is how he starts his day. He says, when I get out of bed in the morning and my feet hit the ground, I know it's going to be a good day. Think about it. You get up in the morning and you can actually get up and your feet hit the ground. You've got another day of life to enjoy. And I just love his attitude. And the truth is that when you are in a good place yourself, the minor irritations of life, some can be amusing instead of irritating, and they don't bother you the way when you're in a bad place. You know, when you arrive someplace and you had a good drive and you feel calm and so forth, that's a lot different than when you had a bad drive and experienced road rage directed at you and whatever. So being in a good place yourself, and by the way, the other advice of my husband is when you're driving someplace, always allow yourself a cushion of time. It's an easy way to avoid being irritated and angry yourself. In fact, when I don't leave myself a cushion of time, that's when all the lights are red. So the truth is, when you're in a good place yourself, like attracts like. And you're much more likely to attract people who are also in a good place themselves, and much less likely to attract people who are in a bad place. So I'd like to thank all of you who are watching this video, and I appreciate your participating in it. I would love for you to write a note in the chat about whether or not my ideas on how to handle an angry person have been helpful to you, and how to prevent getting angry yourself, because this is something that I have spent a lot of my life learning about, and I wanted to share these ideas with you. Again, this is Marjorie Saulson of Vibrant Vocal Power, and I invite you to visit my website, vibrantvocalpower.com, for a lot of more information about things that I share. And if you'd like a complimentary copy of my free report, Overcome Your Public Speaking Fears, you can find it there, the opt-in on my website, vibrantvocalpower.com. Thank you so much for joining me.